Well. I should have my technology in place before I start all this. You would think I would learn by now. How's everyone doing? Give me 1 second here and I'll get hooked in. Good Lord. There we have it. It's Wednesday. Lucky September 13th, apparently. 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel, and it's time to go on the hot seat. And thanks, everyone, for coming. Appreciate your time. First here, FootballDiehards.com is the website. We appreciate you joining us here every Wednesday at this time. Also appreciate you coming around on Saturdays at noon Eastern Time for Ask Me Anything. We do a lot of lineup questions. We'll do some of those tonight. Not afraid of that, right? We got you covered. We got, let's see what we got going on here. Boy, start off with a little confusion. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That's what I want you to do. If you haven't already done that, hit the like button as well. Appreciate that. Man, it's early in the season. Things get crazy. Things are happening, lots of things, so many darn things. We'll try to keep up with all of that and get you up to speed on everything. Have a great guest tonight for On the Hot Seat, as we always do. Hope you enjoy him. You know him as the Gridiron Scholar on Twitter, at Gridiron Scholar 91. His name is John Laub. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I survived the first week madness. I went 8-5 in my 13 leagues, so I can't really complain. I had some definite bumps in the road, but I did enjoy the full all-day slate of football without any question. I love my Sundays. There's not much better.
It was fantastic, much better than Monday night. We'll get into all that. Hello, Terry. Hello, Ken. Hello, Robert. Hello, Dane. Hello, Scampers. Appreciate everyone coming. We will get to your questions. Want to sort through some of the difficulties and some of the issues of week one. And, we'll get to obviously the big stories. But I heard something the other day, John, that I thought was fantastic. A great piece of information, right? I was watching Good Morning Football, and Peter Schrager told me something that, is totally on point. He said, week one is liar. Right? Week one is a liar. There are mirages. There's things we can hang our hats on. But the hard part of this is sorting it out, John. So we saw a lot of things, and we'll get to the injuries and stuff. But when you head into a season, right, and you have all kinds of hopes and dreams and aspirations, and you've told yourselves all these happy stories about certain situations, and they don't come to pass week one, how do you keep yourself in check? What's the method for keeping an even keel through the month of September, even if you're starting off at a little bit of a deficit?
So I'll just use an example, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I had Joe Burrow on a super flow league, and actually have T. Higgins also, because I like to have a wide receiver with my quarterback in a super flex format. Not both, but at least one. And I can't worry about it. Cleveland might be a better defense than we thought. They looked very strong. But obviously, I think Joe Burrow missing all of training camp. I think he didn't take a snap, right, in all of the preseason.
He did not.
And it came to fruition. And then I was reading some historical items, like the Bengals literally can't block Myles Garrett. There's something about Myles Garrett playing, right? It's a major problem when Myles Garrett plays Cincinnati. So I lost the game. No big deal to me whatsoever. Burrow and Higgins remain in the lineup. I want to remain calm because I know it's a long season. I know over our lifetime, when we were kids, Bob, they played 6 preseasons. Then they chopped it to 4. Now they play 3. And legitimately, how many starters are actually even playing, Bob, in these? And I mean, we played football long time ago. But repetition matters, and I really believe repetition matters on offense. You need your timing, you need the route running, and those things did not look in sync for a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of wide receivers. I felt the defense was in a better position in opening up this season. So the offense will come around, the game call, the game plan will improve. So I just remain calm and understand that defenders get paid also in this league, and their job is to stop people.
Right. I think it's fair to, you look at some of these teams that really came up super short, we can start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New York Giants. And it,
Ooh.
I mean, the question for me on some of these is like, are the defenses that good or the offense is that bad? And it's probably somewhere in the middle, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big believer that the defense can be ahead early because they're able to dictate a little bit easier, and all you have to do is miss a pass, half hard, and you're instead of first down. Now, I just think that the Giants weren't ready for it offensively, what the Cowboys were doing defensively. And sometimes, Bob, as fantasy owners, we ignore the improvements that a defense makes in the offseason, right? We want to look at the offensive line. We want to look at the skilled position players. But maybe Dallas, it looks like, has drafted really well on defense. I think he's a generational Micah Parsons. The more I watch him, Bob, he's getting to that Junior Seau, that Ray Lewis, the Lawrence Taylor, where you're just absolutely blown away. And then they got a lot of good pieces with a lot of speed. So I think the Giants will bounce back, but I think the Cowboys are much better than we thought.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I drafted the heck out of him, and I'm very happy I did. I drafted Cleveland a lot. Jim Schwartz is a great coordinator. Has a bunch of disruptive pieces. Dame loved the Myles Garrett basketball moves, and it was indeed legit hilarious. I think that's the thing. Some of these, like, the San Francisco 49ers, we know are going to be a good defense with great playmaking ability. And those kind of teams we have to watch out for. I would say for Philadelphia as well, John. If you're going up against the New England Patriots, and Bill Belichick is a little ticked off at how the end of last season, how last season ended, and he has a whole year to think about scheming up against Philadelphia. And with the talent he has on hand, it's not like a total surprise that he comes out of the chute with a pretty good game and limits Jalen Hurts and company to not one of their best showings. So there's we get a little excited, and then there's the other side of the coin, right? Like the Miami Dolphins come out, Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, lighting up the world. Tyreek Hill already a tenth of the way to his 2,000-yard total he wants to get after, and there were others, but I mean, so I guess how about Puka Nacua, right? I mean, you saw that coming, didn't you, John?
I did like Puka. My teammate at Rookie Big Board, he loved Puka, and I was a Puka fan. Matt liked him even more, but Bob, I got him on 3 dynasty teams because he was basically a 4th or 5th round draft pick. And I have to admit, when a wide receiver falls in the draft, the NFL is telling you something, but we saw the skills at BYU, right? And sometimes, even if the draft capital doesn't show it, the skills in the long run can come and shine. And boy, was Puka good. And I'll say this, Bob, him and Tutu Atwell are a very nice dynamic. You have big physical receiver, kind of a little bit more of your prototypical X with Puka. And then you just see Tutu Atwell, who just can get deep vertically in a millisecond, Bob. Imagine if they get Cooper Kupp back and they go back to that 3 wide receiver formation. I mean, they got some weapons at wide receiver, the Rams.
Yeah, you wonder what would happen to guys like Van Jefferson at that point. It was like, does he become an afterthought? It's going to be interesting to see. Appreciate y'all coming into the chat. I see the questions coming in. I'll get to those here in a minute. So, one of the common themes, that we say as fantasy analysts or professionals is play your studs. So you're sitting there and you're saying, play the depth chart, play your studs. Do we actually know who our studs are right now, or are our studs still defining? I mean, we know who we think are our studs. We know who we drafted to be our studs. But let's say you're sitting there facing a decision between playing, I don't know, Drake London and Puka Nacua. This week, maybe it's an easy decision with San Francisco heading to SoFi. But just generally speaking, how do you determine these things, John?
I am still playing a top 5 round draft pick this early in the season. I expect those players to bounce back. And one thing that I always think about, Bob, is the human nature of the NFL. And if you have a stud player and he wakes up on Monday morning and he looks in the box score and I'm exaggerating, but he sees 1 target for 0 yards, no catches. That man is a little upset when he comes back into the building on Wednesday. And you know, if you're a good coach, a good offensive coordinator, you're going to talk to him and ensure him, you're our guy. We're going to get you the football this week. Stay with us. You can't lose your superstar player, your stud, on a football team. So I believe a lot of these times you right now have coordinators and coaches scheming plays to get the ball into those hands of our underperforming players. So you, in my opinion, you've got to keep them in your lineup week 2. However, you did mention Drake London's interesting, and it's got nothing to do with Drake London. It's all about the scheme. Is Arthur Smith going to give him the tar? I mean, I was buying Kyle Pitts because he was coming in the 6th round sometimes. But I have to admit, I'm really concerned right now about those 2 pass catchers because I'm not a big fan of Desmond Ridder. I think he's got challenges. But then you put this scheme in place, and I just wonder if the targets will be there.
Right. So I was talking about that earlier today, and we view Arthur Smith as an offensive genius, right? Like that's kind of his reputation, a mastermind. And you're sitting there and you're saying, well, that's why he got this job. And he did. Like, look what he did with Cordero Patterson, turned him into a thing by making unique usage of the things that he does well. Maybe this is a guy who knows a lot about offense, telling us exactly what his offense is. Weak at quarterback and great at running back. With a strong offensive line, we should expect to see more of this because he's has a great offensive mind. He knows what's going to work, not his passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get victories, and he's been in the league 2 years, and they have not made the playoffs under his tenure. And I think there builds pressure on head coaches. I don't think you want to start your career 3 years whiffing on the postseason. And if Arthur Smith is looking at that roster, Bob, he's got to say to himself, I love my offensive line, and I love this these 2 running backs, right? I got Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson who can bludgeon people. Why don't I just bludgeon them as much as I can? As long as the game doesn't get out of hand, right? He's going to want to keep this. I would assume if he's within 10 points down, he's going to try to run the football down the throat of the opponent. Obviously, the challenge is, Bob, what happens when he falls behind, 16-0? What does he do at that point? But that might not happen with that offensive line. So I think he's telling us, everyone, we're going to use Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. What if they I was thinking about this, Bob. What if they get 550 touches between the 2 running backs this year? That's possible in Arthur Smith's system.
It seems like the way it's going, that's certainly possible. And that's where I'm kind of at right now. I just look at this offense, I see, wow, he's like maximizing the things that work. There's a lot of weird stuff going on week 1, people. We'll get to your questions here. You might have heard a little news, and John, I'll get your opinion on some of these stories. You might have heard Aaron Rodgers, season over. Zach Wilson comes in. Look, Zach Wilson has some things going for him, right? He's got a great defense. He's got some great receivers. He's got a $36 million quarterbacks coach. And maybe that'll help him out. Is it possible, like we saw what Garrett Wilson did, rookie of the year last year with less than ideal quarterback play? Easily, safe to say that. Is it possible that Zach Wilson has progressed enough from where year 1 to year 2 to just not be horrible, to be serviceable, and keep Garrett Wilson values afloat? Look, the backfield we'll talk about as well, but just that passing attack, what kind of expectations should people have for players like Garrett Wilson, or specifically for Garrett Wilson?
First, I don't think the sky is falling. Obviously, the Jet fandom, the Jet organization, the Jet coaching staff, they obviously wanted Aaron Rodgers. I get that. However, this roster is loaded all over the place. Zach Wilson's entering his 3rd year now in the league. And all he's got to do, Bob, don't turn the ball over. Like on 3rd and 6, if no one's open, literally just throw the ball away, young man. He has the talent around him. I think the ceiling of Garrett Wilson is now limited, right? We're not going to get the Devonta Adams 1,500-yard ceiling that I think a lot of us were hoping for with Aaron Rodgers, right, Bob? We were just hoping that Aaron would pepper him with targets. But is it any worse than it was last year in New York? I mean, do people remember they had a younger Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White throwing the football? If Zach Wilson can be efficient, maybe he throws the ball 25 to 28 times a game. They really limit how often he's going to throw the football and really rely on those two backs. And they're both good pass catchers, Bob. Like, he doesn't have to look. He can really use Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall as an extension of the running game. And we've seen so many veteran quarterbacks. Remember Drew Brees in New Orleans? Like, he just loved Alvin Kamara. And I'm not obviously Wilson is not Alvin Kamara or Drew Brees. But get the ball into the hands of those running backs. If I'm thinking as the offense coordinator, I think Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook should get 5 receptions a game. And I'm dead serious. Get them out into space and limit what Zach Wilson has to do, because that defense is going to keep you in a lot of football games. And it was funny. I was thinking about Trent Dilfer. He won a Super Bowl. In no way do I think these Jets are the Ravens of 2000. I believe it was 2000. But what did Trent Dilfer do? Limit the turnovers, put 17 to 24 points on the board, and we're going to win a lot of football games, gentlemen. All you need with Zach Wilson is put 17 to 24 on. The Jets will be all right. So I don't think the sky's falling, Bob. I just think they have to tweak the offense, and he's got to be smarter with the football.
Right. Scamper says not to mention Michael Carter in that backfield as well. A good receiving asset. Hello, Royal. Hello, Albert. Hello, Ryan. Hello, Melissa. Thanks for coming. Hi, Andrea. Appreciate everyone showing up here. We'll get to your questions in just 1 minute or two. And that brings up, the Breece Hall brings up another point. Like, apparently everyone heals differently, John. Some people heal way better than other people. Some of those people who heal way better than other people are Breece Hall and Javonte Williams as well, I would say, both well ahead of where my expectations were. Look, Adam Schefter was telling us an hour before kickoff that it was going to be very safe approach with Breece Hall, very light workload. I've been contending all along. They're paying Dalvin Cook like high-end money. The expectation to me was that Dalvin Cook would be the primary piece. So they come into this game and they say to Breece Hall, okay, man, you're back. You've been working hard. Here's a courtesy carry. And he takes it almost to the house. They said, oh, well, let's give him another and another and another. I do think they're not going to overwork him, but damn, if they give him 5 carries, he might overwork himself and go 100 yards on that.
Bob, I've been thinking a lot in the last 48 hours about my assessment of the ACL. And I mean, this is one time where I wish I was a little bit more knowledgeable, because we're from a generation. We remember when an ACL, it was a death knell for the running back. Then They started to come back, guys like Terry Allen. Remember him with the Washington team back then? He came back, but that was a long slog. Then Adrian Peterson was like a Superman. That was originally an outlier. But right now, I look at Javonte Williams and Breece Hall, and I'm like, is the science and the technology that much better? Is the rehabbing that much better? Because I thought Breece Hall looked every bit as good as he did at Iowa State and last year when he was playing. I mean, that run was just phenomenal. You saw his lateral move, you saw his vision, and then you saw the speed. And I saw someone like, he caught from behind. He went 80 yards. I mean, he was coming off an ACL. That was an amazing run. And I had flashes of Tony Dorsett. Remember that Monday night 99-yard run against Minnesota? Like, I was like, is Breece Hall going to do this right away? Hey, I've got to really, one of the things I'll do in the offseason is try to research what is with the ACL. Are we looking now at an 8-month window, right? It's different now. They're back. I mean, they might be limited, but they're both very good.
Well, these guys are back, but last year J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that gets me is like I think just need to be mindful that everyone's different. Take them as they come, right? Like accept the possibility. So I was pretty unaccepting of the possibility that Breece Hall would be off to a fast start. I'll be the first to acknowledge that.
Me too.
I feel, we'll still see how it plays out, right? Week 1 might be a liar. We might find out that, maybe he gets some soreness. He was limited in practice today. I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it's anything that's going to slow him. I think they're going to continue to use him at this rate, barring a setback. But we saw with J.K. Dobbins last year, a setback, right? So that is possible. He had to have a cleanup procedure. So we'll see. But, it's definitely changed my mind about those two backs in particular. And it's also reminding me I need to treat everyone like a separate thing. Right, everyone is their own entity. All the paces of healing are different than everyone else's. But you're right. I mean, up to this point, it had been the group of people who came blistering off ACLs was Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles. That was the list.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was the list. I mean, we can go back to last year. Let's say Jameson Williams took time too. I mean, he has happened really late, so I guess that's maybe a little bit of an outlier. So. That's something worth watching. J.K. Dobbins, who, as we mentioned, he is done for the year with a torn Achilles. That is a sad fact. Do you like Edwards or do you like Hill? Gus Edwards or Justice Hill? Or are you fine with whichever one you get?
I am fine with whichever one I get, and I'll say right now, and hope none of my league mates are watching right now, I've got some low bids in on Justice Hill. I kind of like Justice Hill because I think there's a little bit more upside. I really think we've seen what Gus Edwards is, right? A power back, works very well off Lamar Jackson. He can score the touchdowns. And I'm shooting for upside in the backfield at this time of the season. If I'm looking for a player who can get 50 receptions, can hit some home run balls, and I'm talking about 30, 20-yard chunk plays, I think that's Justice Hill. So I'm bypassing Gus Edwards, and I'm going for Justice Hill. I don't know if that's but that's my feeling, and that's what I'm doing, because I like Justice Hill a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, I think Gus Edwards has a bigger body of work, but honestly, the one I got would be the one I'm fine with. So we'll see how this plays out going forward. It sounds like they'll promote Melvin Gordon from the practice squad, not bring somebody in from the outside. Beyond that, we've got a few things. Kenneth Gainwell out for Thursday Night Football. Travis Kelce heading back. Austin Eckler, a player to watch, did not practice today. But they're listing him as both the ankle injury and away for a personal matter. So, there may be a little confusion there that he did not practice at all. Maybe he would have been limited. We don't know. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson both not practicing. If you saw Aaron Jones, light up the Chicago Bears, and then had a little hamstring tightness towards the end. Deontay Johnson out for about a month, it sounds like. Mark Andrews limited to open the week of practice, so we'll see what happens with him. So there are some injury issues. Seems like a more injury stuff to work through than last week, but we will work through that over the course of time. I do want to just get some general, like you'll be coming out with the Scholars, sheet of DraftKings, sheet of knowledge here soon for week 2. Talk a little bit about the process, what you're looking for, without going into specific players, but what kind of matchups you're looking for, what kind of prices you're looking for when you set those, when you go through your sheet of knowledge.
The first thing I always seek is the value plays, especially at running back or wide receiver. Usually I feel like we have a little bit more knowledge on wide receivers by Friday. The running back position is always the most tricky, because sometimes we've probably been, an hour. You're always on with Jeff Manns on Sirius XM, right? And around 11:20, start getting those medical reports, and all of a sudden we can get a new running back, right? Something comes up. So running backs are the last minute is their value at running back. But I try to find every week a wide receiver, and we had done for the Football Diehards last weekend. I'm doing the DFS shorts where I said value plays. And I put Tutu Atwell in for $3,000. And it was, now I got the game script completely wrong. Like, I thought that the Rams would be playing from behind, and without Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell would have opportunities in the passing game. Little did I know Los Angeles was going to come out and beat down the Seahawks. But ironically, Tutu Atwell was unbelievable for $3,000. And that was basically really looking at the Cooper Kupp injury. So it's really, we usually get those Friday injury reports. Now, they're not as reliable as 20 years ago, but they can give you a window into depth charts. And usually if you have a big wide receiver out, I will look for that depth chart to see where snaps and opportunity will be coming from. And if you've been with me, this is my 7th year doing DFS lineups for Football Diehards on the Sheet of Knowledge. I usually have one value receiver. Now, I'm not going to tell you it works out every week. I also like Marvin Mims last week, and that did not work out. Little did I know that Denver was going to play. Was it Brandon Johnson? Was he the receiver?
Yeah.
Right? I did not.
Jordan Humphrey and Philip Dorsett.
Yeah,
they were all in the mix.
So I admit I did not see that much action from other players on the depth chart. So, when you take risk at DFS, you got to embrace the risk at the low end. But you do, over the years, I've identified enough Tutu Atwells. And I'll say another one, Emil and I recorded a short way back second week of August. I talked about Rasheen Shaheed. I absolutely loved him in that matchup. And I think he was very cheap at like 3,600. So there are players like that. And I liked it because of Tennessee. I liked the matchup, Bob. I think we talked about this way last July. I drafted Rasheen Shaheed in a lot of our Football Diehards magazine drafts that we did because he was he was coming 14th, 15th round. And I especially liked him in best ball format because he didn't have to predict the outbreak. But what I liked about him this week was Tennessee isn't good on the back end. I'm going to be probably until Tennessee shows me that they can defend against the pass on the back end. I'm going to be, putting in players against them, especially on the lower side. So to me, it starts on that Friday. Now, I've already looked at some values and salaries, but really by Friday afternoon, I'm getting a hold of the depth chart injury reports to look at the depth charts to find those value wide receivers. And I do use the rankings on defense. Now, early in the season, it can change, especially, when you ever look at the tight end opponents, like defensive rankings, right. You'll see, oh my God, this team is giving up 30 points. I'm exaggerating, but they're giving up 30 points at tight end. Well, they played Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews the first 2 weeks of the season, right? So
small sample size, great players.
Yeah, so you have to kind of be careful with the tight end. And as the season goes along, what I always try to do, I use the sample size of the last 4 games. I don't like in week 10, I'm not really too concerned about what happened week when. Depth charts change too much, schemes upgrade or they change. They can go from man to zone coverage based on injuries and talent. So there's a lot of factors, but I'm always looking at that type of stuff too. Who are the worst pass defenses over the last month? But it's a little tricky. I'm looking for opportunity early in the season. As the season progresses, I'm looking for weaknesses on defense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense as well, to evolve over time to, kind of get past the volatility and you get a little more confidence in what the matchups actually are, right? I mean, that's part of it for me. By the way, I'm Bob Harris. I screwed up my intro at the top of the show. I hope you all saw that. I didn't have my AirPods in. So FootballDiehards.com is the website. You can go there. The flash update, in-season premium service is up and running. You can use the promo code DieHards to get in on it. We'll promote the price, give you 15% off. It'll be great. You'll love it. John Laub's work is there. As we mentioned, the DraftKings, his weekly column, the Scholar's Sheet of Knowledge for DraftKings, a great piece. I read it every week. Use it as I set my lineups. We do have lineup optimizers, ownership percentages, everything you need to do to set great DFS lineups. Jamie Calandro's articles. I do my own DFS tournament 3 and out article. So plenty of content there and tools to help you navigate the tricky DFS waters. He, by the way, the Gridiron Scholar, John Laub, follow him on X. At Gridiron Scholar 91, you see him all his work at Diehards. You see him as the host of the Rookie Big Board. College fantasy football, also his lane. He can tell you. He knows more about guys that I'll never hear of than I know about, like people that I do know about. It's amazing the depth of knowledge that comes from that college game, John. I think that's, you can encourage people to play that, just to have really good knowledge of the players once they get to the pros. But I'm too busy with the pro football. I'll leave this to you. This is your field of expertise. But we do have some questions in the chat, so let's get to some of those and help people sort out some of their lineup issues, John, if you don't mind. I think they would like that. Of course. So the obvious questions come in. Yeah, well, this is not so obvious, but this one, Kyron Williams. So they have first waiver pick, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Gainwell, or Kelly for the long term. Well, we know Gainwell's not going to play this week, but he seems to be the lead piece of this. Now, let's just go out here. I don't know that we know where this is going to end up. Gainwell is it right now, and it seemed to be gaining momentum. He seemed to be gaining momentum late in the preseason. My experience has been with these things, by the time the season ends, the things I was hearing in May and June tend to be more correct than the things that are happening in August and September. If that's the case, the Rashad Penny shares that I'm going to be bailing on long before they're worth something, someone's going to want to pick up later. And maybe even DeAndre Swift. Nick Sirianni saying today that they need to get him more touches. Well, they're probably going to get him more touches against the Minnesota Vikings in a super favorable matchup. But Gainwell does seem to have the job early on. Kyron Williams sharing with Cam Akers, pretty even split, but he was getting the good chunks, right? He was getting the tasty morsels near the goal line, and Cam was running into the box, 8 men in the box every single time. It's almost as if the Seattle Seahawks knew the run was coming when Cam Akers was in the backfield. So, and Kelly obviously working behind Austin Eckler, but seems to be that guy they're trying to mold into the Melvin Gordon role back when it was a true timeshare there. Which one of these guys do you like, John?
I like the long-term, without question, Gainwell the most. I do think the Eagles coaching staff seems to have confidence in him. I have a couple things I think about when I look at this depth chart. And I like DeAndre Swift coming out of Georgia. And there's been flashes of greatness at the NFL level. But, Bob, the consistency has not been there. And this is now 2 coaching staffs in which the entire world thought, wow, isn't DeAndre Swift going to get all the snaps and all the touches? And what did he have, 1 carry and 1 catch? So I just say to myself, what is going on? So that concerns me. So I don't have any confidence in Swift. I love Penny too, coming out of San Diego State, first-round draft pick for a group of 5 runner to get first-round draft capital as that type of player. And he had a 2,000-yard season on his resume. But Bobby just can't stay healthy. I think he'll have 3 very good fantasy-worthy games. In best ball, I think Penny was probably worth a late-round flyer, 3 or 4 weeks. But we haven't seen – has he – I'm trying to think. Has he ever played more than 8 games in a season? I'm not exactly sure.
I want to say he did in 21. I mean, he had that 6-game run in 21 where he was almost unstoppable.
Yes, he was unbelievable. Hey, he won me a couple of fantasy championships late in the year. He was unbelievable. But I just don't have enough confidence that Penny can stay on the field long enough. Now, I do wonder if this was a Sunday game, would Gainwell play? I think with the quick turnaround and these new running back by committees, Bob, is this going to be a trend on some teams moving forward? Now, I don't expect a great back. Jonathan Taylor's not. I'm trying to think why is my Bijan? Let's say Bijan. Bijan, maybe you limit his carries a little bit on a Sunday, Thursday. The great backs are still going to get their touches. But if you have one of these running back by committees, Bob, why this isn't real, and I don't want to say this from a fantasy standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint, this might not be a bad idea, right? I'm wondering if Penny's going to get the work this week. He was inactive, which I was blown away. I think I heard it with you and Jeff Manns. You said Rashad Penny's inactive. I'm like, what? I thought we heard so many glowing reports about Rashad. Yeah, he's inactive.
And then we had some foreshadowing on it. We should have known, like when the Eagles, and I will tell you, they're cowards, listing all 4 as first team. Pick one. But I do think this week maybe there's a chance with Gainwell out that he will probably be active, and maybe he gets a hot hand. Sounds like they want to try and get Swift going. Look, these are the times we live in, people. It's not our fault. Yes. We were just born into it. and multiple running backs on single teams, murky situations are going to be something we have to navigate. There's just not the number of feature backs that there were back when John and I were young men and enjoyed playing those guys. You just don't get that anymore. So you have to sort through them. And I do think that's like right now, the hierarchy for me in Philadelphia goes Gainwell, Swift, and then we'll see, Boston Scott obviously had some run, but we'll see if Petty's worthwhile or not. And if I hold on to him, if I'm able to hold on to him, right, in the short leagues, I might have to churn him, and he might be at the bottom of my roster. I do like Kelly a little bit for the long term. I think Kyron Williams seems like he's going to have a role. If it's the passing role, Matthew Stafford looks very good. I would rank them Gainwell, probably Kelly, and then Kyron Williams for me. Once again, one more reminder, week one is a liar. Some of the things we're seeing week one are going to be mirages and just not come through, and we'll try and sort through those. Ken Snoofer wants to know, can pick up Dak Prescott and drop Daniel Jones. I think you should have already done this. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I do look. If my memory serves me, I would have. Oops, sorry, dog saw someone outside. I would have had. I do believe Dak Prescott I had ranked higher than Daniel Jones, so I would have done that move prior. I would have put Dak Prescott over Daniel Jones. What the Giants last week, but that. I can't believe Dable on that offense will be that bad again. But what I do like about Prescott, I think he's going to have a very nice floor on a weekly basis. Eventually, teams will put up points on that defense, right, which will force Dak to throw the ball more. So I think the fantasy points will be there, right? And aren't we a little concerned? We mentioned this a lot. The Giants didn't upgrade the wide receivers. I have a lot of Isaiah Hodgkins just because I look at the depth chart. It seems like a more reasonable player to take put a chip on. And then we were talking about Darren Waller, and what do we get all the time now? Darren Waller's got the soft right the hammer. That is very concerning when you look at the people around Jones. So I will take Dak Prescott in this scenario.
I'll take Dak Prescott too. I will say I think that first game is a bit of an outlier. Brian Dable will get it sorted out, but the offensive line concerns me a little bit. Daniel Jones was running for his life. Fortunately, he can run, and he is still alive, so we got that going for us. But I'd probably take Dak for the reason John says. I think the weekly floor will be solid. But clearly, they're going to run a fair amount there. Mike McCarthy, as the play caller, wants to do that. Let's see what else we have here. I had Rodgers as my starting quarterback. Who is a backup that could come on in the next 2 to 3 weeks? Define backup. Is it anyone, not drafted as a wide receiver or as a quarterback one in fantasy? There's a ton of them, right? I mean, you didn't necessarily draft Kirk Cousins as your first quarterback. You could play him easily. But if you want to go down the ranks a little bit, John, what do you think of players like, Derek Carr seems like a guy. So I'm assuming you mean fantasy backup, because I don't think there's any NFL backups or that we can predict reliably who's going to be injured beyond who's already injured. And we already talked about Zach Wilson a fair amount. So assuming what fantasy quarterback twos, John, do you like for the next month?
So I haven't looked at the update. You know how waivers run sometimes on Tuesday nights, but 3 quarterbacks that I looked at, and I'll put them in preferred order. I like Brock Purdy. I just think they like him in San Francisco. There's just too much goodness. When you really think about it, is George Kittle the 4th option right now on this offense? Think about what I just said. He might be the 4th option. So you're looking at Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Dabo, right? Dabo Sweeney. Not Dabo.
No, Deebo Samuel. You got college name on your mind.
I'm thinking college football, the coach of Clemson. And then you get George Kittle. I like the talent around Brock Purdy. And here, Bob, we talked about this in July. They telegraphed this. The 49ers told us all offseason they love Brock Purdy. They just did time and time again. We got confirmation. So I'm going to go Brock Purdy. Then I like Jordan Love. And I will be honest, I was not a Jordan Love guy coming out of Utah State. I had a lot of questions about. He had a huge turnover rate. I thought he made a lot of mistakes. Was there arm talent? Without question. there was no question in my mind. But the quarterback position is a lot more than just throwing the football. But, man, Jordan Love has a nice arm. And I think LaFleur has built an optimal offense around Jordan Love. Use those two running backs. Jordan Love is not going to be expected to win the game. Just be smart with the football. And, Bob, we grew up in a generation where a lot of quarterbacks sat on the bench and learned how to play football. Maybe Jordan Love, this has been really beneficial to this young man to say, I think it was 3 seasons, right? I think he sat for 3 seasons in Green Bay. Maybe he's really learned how to play the quarterback position instead of getting thrown to the lions like, all these young quarterbacks do. So I like Jordan Love. And then the third one, I agree with you on Derek Carr. I would assume Derek Carr is in a pretty high percentage. They have some weapons. Michael Thomas, who I don't have any of. I'm not banking on Michael Thomas. But with Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Michael Thomas, Bob, they got some players out there. Yeah, you're right, Juwan Johnson. I mean, Derek Carr, for all his faults, and we know there's going to be some down games, right? We've all seen it. But I think Derek Carr can serve. If you need to replace Aaron Rodgers, I would go Purdy, Love, and Carr in that order.
Yeah, I think those are some great options there. Greg Pruitt needs to put Cooper Kupp on injured reserve. Pouring one out for you, my friend. I'm with you there. Thinking about picking up Zay Jones or Cortland Sutton. Any suggestions? I'll just say Zay Jones, phenomenal catch. Mike Dempsey has been telling us all summer, watching on the practice field, that Zay Jones looks like a beast, looks like a different guy. And we'll see how it plays out. I think there are going to be weeks. Calvin Ridley turned into the wide receiver 1 there pretty clearly. I think his numbers are going to be consistent. I think after that, you're taking your chances a little bit week to week. So I'd probably lean Cortland Sutton, John, who I like a little bit, who looked pretty good. Jerry Jeudy will be back soon, but I think Sutton kind of would be my lean. Where are you at?
I'm a Sutton guy too, because if you look at the Sean Payton offense historically, he's going to give the ball to that X receiver. And Sutton has a lot of not just Michael Thomas. Who was that great wide receiver they had who came out of Hofstra?
Marcus Colston.
That's it, Marcus Colston. And I don't even think Marcus Colston might have been a free agent, right? I don't think he was a draft pick.
Converted tight end. Yep. Yeah, he was a converted tight end.
And he became such a fantasy star in Peyton's. Now, Sutton has some of those big-bodied traits, right, Bob? That he can function in the middle of the field, yet he's fast enough and he's got long enough arms to get vertically on a defense. And I think Peyton likes that kind of wide receiver. So I have a lot of Sutton. I have a lot of Jeudy too, but I have a lot of Sutton because he was coming really late in drafts. And I watched that game and I remember they didn't throw to him much in the beginning. I'm like, okay, what's with Sutton? And then I think he had enough targets in the second half and he eventually scored the touchdown. I think Sutton's the guy out of that. I like Sutton.
I agree. Harlan Mundo's trying to start a fight with me. Wants to know if he should put George Kittle in over Jahmyr Gibbs. What the hell? That's like slanderous. Kenneth Walker. And so he wants to put Kittle in over Kenneth Walker and or Jahmyr Gibbs. Are you co-signing on that, John, or would you advise him otherwise?
I'm not putting him ahead of Kenneth Walker, unless did I miss an injury? I don't think I saw an injury on Kenneth Walker.
You did not.
Okay, so I'm keeping Kenneth Walker, no question. Gibbs. This is something I'm going to have to think more about because what?
Careful now.
Careful now. I'm looking at him. I already took a quick snipe at salaries on DraftKings, and that Lions-Seattle game is very enticing, everyone. So I have not thought through, and I want to stay on the show, so I have to be careful here. Also, there might be a technical malfunction. But I would say at this point, I'm inclined to bench Jahmyr Gibbs until I see more snaps. I have to see him on the field. And here's my biggest concern. The numbers, oh my God, What did Montgomery have? I thought he had 54 snaps. I looked at that or something. Like the number of snaps that he had. Let me look. I'm popping it up on my screen. 54. My memory. 54 snaps for David Montgomery. 21 carries, Bob. It's hard to bet against the guy and put a guy on the field when the other guy's getting 54 snaps. So I got to think hard about this. But I might play George Kittle at this point. And Bob, please keep me on the show.
We will. We're going to go back to my top of the show's comments citing the great Peter Schrager. Week 1 is a liar, people. Be careful. I would like. So, in all seriousness, look, it was not the start I want for Gibbs. I think there will be an evolution. It wasn't the start for Walker that anyone wanted either. I don't think, or the Seahawks offense in general. And I think that's a bit of a mirage. I think that'll shift over time. So we'll see. But I think the issue for me with Kittle, and it's a great matchup for the 49ers going against the Rams, although the Seahawks would tell you otherwise, is, the issue is there's a lot of mouths to feed there. And as John mentioned, I think he is not the first option. So, I mean, I get why you might want to hope for a rebound. Maybe this is a come correct week. They tried to get him back on track. I don't know that I'd put him in over Walker for sure. It'd be closer over Gibbs. And I'm only saying that because it's not my roster. Harlem Mundo also wants to know he's thinking of starting one running back, Pollard, and 4 receivers, 2 tight ends and wide receivers. So JJ, Justin Jefferson, easy call, Mike Evans, Waller, and Kittle with Pollard. Thinking of starting those. So I guess with Walker, that's the Walker and Gibbs, who he would be leaving them on the bench in favor of. Like
now, I'm definitely going to play one.
Yeah, I want to get Walker in there, and you've got enough firepower that you can stay off that. So I'd probably play him over Kittle. I'd probably keep Waller in there as well. So I think you're not on a crazy path, Harlem Mundo, and I know you're trying to rile me up. I'm not going to let it work. I'm not going to let this Jahmyr Gibbs slander ruin my day any more than I'm going to let my lousy open to this show. Oh wait, it already did ruin my day. Graham F. Hey Bob, lucky me. I have Cup and Deontay on IR. Not dropping Cup. Do I hold Deontay? We have a no IR spot. Ouch. 8-man bench. Okay. Currently on his bench, Romeo Doubs and Puka Nacua. Are you holding on to both those assets? We have a pretty good idea on Deontay. It's going to be 4 games, is what Jerry Dulac from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reported. I think that falls into line with what Adam Schefter reported, multiple games. I think with Cup, it's a little dicier. Like if you're out there in the mean streets of the interwebs, you hear some horrifying rumors about serious conditions and nerve issues and things that might be more than 4 games. But I don't know if I believe all of them. There's other rumors out there saying he's going to be perfectly fine. So I think I do want to hold on to both of them a little while and get and see what I'm going to get in return. So probably holding on to Deontay as well, who I think that offense will be fine. John, if you needed to churn though. If you were in a spot where you needed somebody to jump into a lineup, which one of those would you be more willing to let go of? Would it be Deontay easily?
Yeah, because the ceiling of Cup is still so high, and I think you might get lucky, and Deontay might remain available on the waiver wire for a week or 2, right? Because last year he didn't score a touchdown. I think there were people who were down on Deontay Johnson. Once you put Cooper Kupp in, a smart owner who is healthy, right, who doesn't have to worry about the wide receiver position and they can wait on Cooper Kupp. I don't think Cooper Kupp lasts on the waiver wire, where you might get a little lucky with Deontay Johnson. Maybe he sits there for a week or 2. So if you need to, you might be able to sneak him back onto your roster. Cooper Kupp's too big of a name. You put him out there, someone takes him. And we just don't know, Bob. I look around and there's too many conflicting reports on Cooper Kupp. We don't really know that.
Yeah, it is. I'm taking a wait and see on him as well. I think that's perfectly reasonable. So I think that kind of answers it for you, Graham F. I mean, if you had to churn, I think John is right. I don't know that he's right about Deontay making it on waivers too long, but I think that'd be the chance I take. Not ideal. Ideally, I want to keep both of them though. Ryan has McLaurin, Brian Robinson against Denver, AJ Dillon or Samaje Perine against Washington. He needs one of those, John. also playing Javonte. So McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Dylan, Pirine. 1 to go along with Javonte.
Right now, we don't know yet, right? I do believe Aaron Jones did not practice today, right? I believe I read that on our website. Okay, I read that on the website. So I've already put A.J. Dillon in my kind of sleepers DFS pool with Joshua Kelly because those are 2 running backs that could get significant upgrade if Eckler and Jones are out. So if Jones is out, I'm going to play Dillon. He's going to be my top 1. If Jones is in, I'm not going to play Dillon. I can't. There's not enough touches right now, it seems like, with Jones. So then we're going Pirine or Brian Robinson. I'm going to go game script. Game script says Denver's going to win this game against Washington. What does that tell me? Antonio Gibson might get more snaps in the passing game if they fall behind. Also, I think I was looking at, I think Pirine and Williams played almost the exact same snaps, right? Weren't they within like 2 snaps? Yep. So I feel
a little more
pretty
receiving
good.
action.
Yeah. So I like Pirine based. So I'm going to go Dillon if Jones is out. If not, go with the home team favorite. I'm going to go Pirine.
I'm not. I'm going to go. I probably will go A.J. Dillon if Jones is out, but otherwise I'm going Brian Robinson. He got the 19 carries. Didn't do a hell of a lot with it, but I like the opportunities. Also, he had 2 targets to Antonio Gibson's 1. I mean, it seems like he's getting a fair amount of time. So I mean, ideally, I like Pirine, and I think he's going to be the receiving portion of this. He had a little more run as a receiver in that first game, but it is going to be an even split, and I'm not sure I want to have both guys in that offense that, well, they don't always score all the points that I would like them to. That 16 last week was kind of falls into line with what they've done over the course of time. So I'm probably going with what I hope to be more explosive offense. Not that Washington was super explosive last week. I will say the Cardinals defense plays with a lot of intensity and maybe a little too much intensity according to the penalty flags. But so, they're 20 points last week, but I thought Brian Robinson, the volume was good enough for me. So I'd probably go that way, but Dillon for sure. I just don't want too many Denver Broncos in if that offense isn't going to be putting up big numbers. And I don't know that they will be this week. So there you have that. We will agree to disagree, John Laub. Greg Pruitt forgot to mention non-PPR in that Zay Jones, Cortland Sutton. I don't think that changes anything for me. Thought about picking up Zach Ertz. He'd probably be a good pickup, people. Looks like he's got some work there. Graham F, a half-point PPR, 2 out of these 3. James Conner, Tyler Algier, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like people are setting you up for a fall here, John.
I'm never going to get invited back here. So I'm going to say clearly Tyler Algier. That's without question in my book. I think at this we're going to get a pretty healthy opportunity share, much more than we wanted, but I think both of them can be productive. Comes down to Jahmyr Gibbs. Who was the other? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. Who was the first player that he had put on the?
James Conner, who by the way was limited. James Conner limited with a calf injury today to open the week of practice.
That's right, because I was looking at the Cardinals depth chart for a possible DFS play if Conner's out. Yeah, Keontae Ingram. I was like, interesting. Let me think about it for a couple days. If Conner, I would play Conner because he's clearly the guy right now. And I think his snap count and opportunity share was massive. He's clearly the guy in Arizona. If he's healthy, we just have to watch that very closely. But I'm going to go Conner and Algier in these 3 and hope that Bob brings me back someday.
I will bring you back. Robert said, John used to watch your video of Emo. You used to give out a stack play on DraftKings. Can you add that to the sheet of knowledge? On the sheet is 1 lineup cash and 1 GPP.
Oh, I could. Let me think about it. I guess I just didn't even think of. I didn't do it this year. I think that's a 90% go. So I could probably do that. Yes.
By the way, speaking of Emo, going back to the Jordan Love situation, who has more shares of Jordan Love than Emo Cadlick? Probably nobody on earth. Emo was out of him all summer long, and it started changing the way I looked at it. And I've kind of made the argument on Jordan Love. That was pretty clear that maybe we don't know what he is, but the Packers probably did. And Matt LaFleur is a pretty good coach, and they have some pretty good weapons around him. And we saw the LaFleur coaching him up aspect, or at least scheming it up without Christian Watson last week. Came up with a great game plan for the Bears. So there's a lot to like there. Jason Wilson needs one of these 5 wide receivers, John, in a PPR. Dotson versus the Broncos. And look at Jason's been here before. He knows how to do this. Elijah Moore versus the Steelers. DJ Moore versus the Bucks. Gabe Davis versus the Raiders, or Sky Moore. So it's going to be Dotson, Elijah, DJ, Gabe Davis, Sky.
Interesting. I have so many of those players.
4 of them.
Okay, I'm going to start DJ Moore. I know he only had 2. I know he only had 2 receptions, but we started the show off, Bob, discussing how a coaching staff has to get a great player involved. And I would think DJ Moore, if he's as competitive as I think he is, he probably said a few words somewheres to someone in that Chicago building. And, what did my grandmother always say? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. I got a feeling DJ Moore is going to do a little bit better than 2 targets this week. And I'm not in love with the other. I wasn't impressed with Gabe Davis. Sky Moore, we haven't seen it yet. Elijah Moore, I don't know. That's not a good matchup. They're just going to beat people up on the ground. Jerome Ford looked good. You got Amari Cooper, so I wonder about that. And who was the very first guy, the 4th guy that I'm missing out on? I like DJ Moore.
Davis?
Oh, no, Jahan Dotson. I'm worried about Jahan Dotson. Yeah, I'm worried about that matchup, so I'm going to definitely go DJ Moore here.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm hoping for some course correction. And by the way, before I play Gabe Davis, I'm going to probably play Jordan Whitehead. He seems to be the complimentary receiver Josh Allen's been looking for.
Wow. My shares of Gabe Davis.
He had 3 catches.
He did. It was bad. I'm not going to tell you it was good. I can't. I watched the game. It wasn't good.
It wasn't good, guys. So yeah, I'm not in on Gabe Davis. I think again, week 1, weird things happen. Josh Allen has a little tendency to get a little too aggressive. I think is part of his problem, and that's why Gabe Davis was not the 2nd leading receiver, and it was a New York Jet safety who was the 2nd leading defender. Mark Spafford wants to know, should I worry about Alexander Madison at Philadelphia tomorrow night? I have Joshua Kelly at Tennessee or Gus Edwards at Cincinnati. I'd worry a little bit about all those guys. John, where are you at? Would you play either of those other 2 over Madison, or would you feel like you're outsmarting yourself?
I do feel like I'm outsmarting myself, but we do know Kirk Cousins. This game's on the road, right? Aren't they in Philadelphia? And he's bad at prime. So we got a prime time on the grass in Philadelphia. But I like Joshua Kelly, but we don't have confirmation. Are you comfortable playing Gus Edwards if you're desperate? I probably would roll the dice and bench Madison on the road when Kirk Cousins is bad in these matchups. I have to debate. Bob and I are in a great dynasty league. Mike Dempsey's, he's the commissioner. I have Brock Cousins. And right now, Brock Purdy in for Kirk Cousins because that Kirk Cousins in prime time on the road. I don't know. I'm very concerned about that. So I might not play Madison because if Kirk Cousins doesn't get the offense moving, he's just going to limit Madison, right?
Yeah. It'll be a problem. Right? It's a tough matchup. I'm probably not going that far just without knowing. I guess I could play Edwards at Cincinnati if I had to. So yeah, I might take a wait and see, and maybe you get not lucky because everyone with Austin Eckler is going to take umbrage at that as well they should. But if Joshua Kelly's the lead piece in that offense, Tennessee's not easy to run against. That goes back to last year. I'm not just using this first game, so that's a deal. By the way, good night, Andrea. Thanks for coming. So, John, a question here, and I guess this is probably looking at the different lineups. All the lineups that you put in the sheet of knowledge are cash game lineups, correct?
Yeah, I'm a cash game player. Once in a while I'll dabble, but I'm not a GPP player. It's just, I like to churn. I know I've heard you say that before. I like to just churn out my nice little, plus money every week on the cash games. But yes, I don't want to mislead anyone and tell them that they're doing GPP, because that's not fair, because I know there's a complete different strategy. You have to try to go for low ownership on games in which are not perceived to be the high scoring game.
Yeah, there you have it. All right, everybody. We're gonna head out of here. We appreciate the time you've spent with us. We'll be back Saturday. I'll be back Saturday with the Ask Me Anything session. We'll have a little more definitive ideas on some of these lineup questions that you have as we get closer to the weekend and the games come to fruition. So I hope we answered all your questions. Melissa, Whitehead over Simmons. Whitehead to the moon, I think, is the thing right now. The Jets defense looks really good. Isaiah Simmons. What is there something going on with Isaiah Simmons? What do I want to say? Let me look. Did I see something going on with him? No, nothing. He's a good fit for the Giants. I don't know. I would probably play Whitehead over Simmons just right now, just if you're having that choice as a flex play on defense. So there is that. But anyway, appreciate y'all coming. Go to Football Diehards. It's the website. Use the promo code Diehards. Get 15% off. Find John Laub's great work. Also find John on Twitter at Gridiron Scholar 91. You can't miss him. He's fantastic. He's on there putting all kinds of content out. Catch him on the YouTube channel with the shorts as well. Catch me next week. Catch me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio 2. I will be on Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can hardly miss it. Go to footballdiehards.com. Good night, everybody. I love you all.